I was playing that game or showing. Yeah, we were playing that game with my nephew, and I was on not a Zoom, like a FaceTime call with my sister, like talking to him at the same time. And we were showing her the gameplay, and she was like, saw like a few big crashes, and there's all these like big blood spurts like coming out. Like obviously it's just like cubes, and she was like mentioned it. I was like, I didn't even really think of that. And I like went to the settings. Like, oh, you can toggle that off. Yeah, probably a good idea.
Yep.
Like we are falling off these giant mountains here. Like it might be a good idea to at least take out these splatter effects.
It's a good reminder.
Splatter would be realistic, but yes.
Don't do this at home.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I never know like how often to like bring up that kind of stuff if we're watching like a Spider-Man movie and he like jumps off the top of a building and just starts like swinging around. It's like I don't want to every time we're watching something be like, hey, just so you know,
you can't jump off a building.
Do that. You're not Spider-Man, but like at the same time, I also feel like I'm like, hey, I should be responsible here and like make sure he knows that like, hey, this is a cartoon. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Pursuing Pixels. My name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm here tonight with John Hines.
Hey there.
And Randall Nolery.
Hey, folks.
And we've got the full crew in the house once again. I feel like it's been a hot minute since we've all been here for an episode proper of the podcast. But yeah, John and Randall both back from some recent travel here. Sounds like you guys both had some good trips, and it sounds like at least John's been able to sink his teeth into some gaming since getting back. And I've been kind of doing a little bouncing around like usual. I don't know about you on your end, Randall.
Oh, yeah. Bouncing around at best when I can actually stick with something that isn't stupid NBA. Yeah.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with sticking with the go-tos. That's actually kind of a perfect transition to just go into what what I'm going to talk about today. And I guess I haven't talked about it ad nauseum over the years, but I've definitely talked about it quite a bit lately. I've been talking about Cuphead like crazy. And I talked about with Randall recently. I think it was with you when we did our duo episode when I talked about kind of polishing that game off.
Yep.
Not including the DLC, The Delicious Last Course. And DJ from the early days of the podcast was just in town over this last weekend, or maybe it was a weekend ago at this point. But I had texted him that I was ripping through Cuphead. He was a big fan of that game, years and years ago when he played through it. So I was saying, hey, you know what? If you never played through that DLC, I've never really played a ton of this game co-op other than the one time I played with Mikey way back in the day when the game first came out, or right around that time. So I was like, okay, yeah, that'll be a fun way for me to get a little taste of the co-op, and then obviously just see what the DLC is all about. And first and foremost, I'm just happy to report that the DLC is just more of the awesomeness of the main, original campaign. It's just one more island full of bosses. The only thing that's like a little bit of a bummer is like the way the percentages work in the main game. Like if you just beat the game on like regular difficulty and get all the way through, and you'll pretty much get 100%. And then the only way to get like a full 100% is to do, to get like perfect parries and take no damage on the bosses and like do all the challenges. I'm okay. I'm not even going to bother with that. And then you can get a full 200% somehow if you I think if you do like after you beat it on regular, it like unlocks like an advanced or some kind of challenge mode of each boss. So you can get a 200% on there. But on this challenge island, you can only get up to like 50% or like a little above that maybe. And then to get the full 100% is you have to beat that like super challenging mode. And I think they just did it to kind of like pad out the island a little bit. It doesn't feel like it's that much shorter than any of the other three that come before it, but I guess because it was like kind of like sold as a standalone DLC, if you will, they maybe just wanted to make it feel a little longer. But it literally has nothing to do with like beating the game or anything. So just like a small gripe, if you're like a completionist that needs to get 100%, I guess you might end up beating your head against the wall on this one in the super challenging mode. But yeah, the co-op mode is great. I do think having not played any of these bosses in single player mode, I'm assuming they add more health, because it felt like we were just peppering these bosses for extended lengths of time, where it's like there's no way this boss would have this much health if I was playing single player. I guess I could be wrong, but that's what I'm assuming they're doing to kind of pad the difficulty for co-op, because otherwise you do have like the same level of health, but if one of you dies, you turn into a ghost, and then the way that you can revive the other player is if you can run over to them and like do that parry mechanic, which is basically jumping and then jumping again right on like their glowing heart that's like in the center of their ghost, little character. They'll come back to life, and the way they kind of mitigate that is every time you die and like go into that ghost form, your soul like flies up faster and faster. So like eventually it gets to the point where your partner's not going to be able to bring you back, unless they're right on top of you when it happens. But there were some cool moments where like one of the last bosses, maybe even the final boss, you're like one of the final phases, you kind of travel upwards. So I had died and flew off the top of the screen, but then DJ beat that phase of the boss, and then the screen kind of moved upwards and it caught up to my ghost character.
That's amazing.
And DJ was, I can get you. And like scrambled over there. And that might have even been the run we beat the final boss on. I'm not positive, but there were just some great moments like that. And even one of the best moments, and I guess minor spoiler alert for if you're going into this totally fresh, I wouldn't say a spoiler, but like a surprise, like it'll ruin the surprise for you a little bit, I guess. But like, every time you beat a boss in the main game, it's like a total knockout or whatever. And there's like a little announcer that comes in, and it's got this little animation. And so the first boss we squared off against on the DLC, it had like a slightly different animation. And I was like, oh, cool. They have like even a new animation in this game. But it was like actually a fake out. There's like this second character that that was part of the boss character, like its little second minion, or it might have even been like the brain controlling the boss or whatever, but it was like this snail character, and it like pops out, and it kind of was part of the animation, and we were like celebrating, like, yeah, we beat it. And then like it just like tears away, and there was like one last little phase of the boss, and it totally got us the first time. It's kind of like that Limbo style, where it's like, okay, yeah, you got me once, but you're never really going to get me again on that. But still, it was such a cool... I mean, because you can pick from a couple of different first bosses, so it just so happened that it was the first one we played. So I was like, oh, nice, a nice new animation in this DLC. And then I was like, oh, shit, they got me. It was just, there were some really cool moments like that. So just really, really a blast. I do have like a small feeling or pit in the back of my stomach or itch in the back of my brain, whatever you want to say, or however you want to call it. That I'm like, I kind of want to try to beat those DLC bosses solo just to like... not prove that I can do it, but just to do it, I guess. Which I guess is just to prove that I can do it. I mean,
you beat the original game by yourself, which I sure can't do when I've tried. God damn, that game is hard. So yeah, I bet you could.
Yeah, there's definitely no part of me that like feels like I couldn't do it, but there's just some weird part of me, like weird. DJ and I were even talking about it a little. Like, is there any part of you that feels like, you can't, like either you're not truly beating it if you're beating it co-op, or, do you feel like you have to go back? And for the most part, I was saying, no, I don't really feel like I do. But now that I'm like, that was pretty cool, I wouldn't mind ripping through that again. It's shorter and sweeter. It's all boss rush stuff. There's no platforming levels to the best of my knowledge, but just really, really solid stuff. And again, just to echo that point that I've made every time I've talked about this game, but it's just like the spiritual successor, if you will, the Gunstar Heroes, that just happens to have some of the most incredible hand-drawn animation and live performed music that you can imagine in a video game. So
plus the multi-phase bosses is another thing that you could make a connection to. Yeah, exactly. I was thinking about that too.
Exactly.
Not going to talk about another treasure game on this particular episode, but yeah.
Oh yeah, get a little connective tissue, baby.
Yeah.
But yeah, just more awesome stuff from Cuphead, and yeah, I'm really glad to own that physical version on Switch that has all of that, DLC and everything included. And again, we were playing it on my Switch too, but it runs really great. I noticed maybe like a tiny bit of slowdown on some of the final bosses, but really nothing too drastic. And it might have just been me, like, in a daze after playing the boss 20 times in a row. So, but yeah, I think I can wrap it up there with the Cuphead chat and kick it over to John here for a little shift in gears, I guess.
Yeah, I'll be talking about a few games that are going to span a couple different genres. But
yeah,
to start off, like I recently on my vacation went to visit my brother-in-law. and we went to Utah, and he's a huge snowboarder and like goes on the mountain constantly. And my wife skis, like she has, and I've gone snowboarding. This was my third time total.
Nice. Okay.
So like I've done it over a long like period of time with large gaps in between, but like I skateboarded a lot when I was in my youth.
Hell yeah.
But you know, the muscle memory is not exactly the same, and there's a lot of different skills, but there is absolutely something about, you know, getting to the top of a mountain and then going down, like finding your path and, you know, figuring out the best way to like physically move your body and get to the end. And like after doing that in real life, and especially doing it in spring, which was a time I had never gone before, because every other time I had done it like either in the like dead of winter or in the Midwest when it is the cold and like there's more ice than snow. But like, this was a very different, like very warm, you know, by the end of the day, like there's just like water cascading down from the mountain because of how much of the snow has melted from like earlier in the day. And like all of these things like were in my head. And when I like got back here, I was like, I really got to give Lonely Mountain Snow Riders another chance. Like we've talked about Lonely Mountains Downhill so many times on this podcast, and like Snow Riders came out and I was just like, you know, I feel like we just glossed over it or didn't really give it a chance because like it was doing something different than Downhill, but like not enough that it felt like it was kind of hard to like grab on to like, how is this game different? What is it doing different? And like, what is it actually like trying to say? And
I don't want to speak for you, but there's part of me that wanted, like, having played so much Lonely Mountains Downhill, I was expecting to kind of just pick it up and be pretty good at it right away. And I was like, oh, there's a little learning curve to this game, you know? So it took a minute to click, if it even clicked at all. And part of the reason I didn't play much more is because it was on Game Pass and I don't have that anymore. So
right. And like, I think that, you know, when you're actually, you know, either skiing or snowboarding, like there's a lot of, okay, you're going to the top of a mountain and you're looking at what are the paths that you can take down that are like, you're able to handle at your skill level. And like Snow Riders doesn't even necessarily do that, because the way that you would kind of do that would almost be more of like an open world thing where it's like, okay, well, if you go down this path, it's a like double black diamond. If you go down this one, it's like, you know, a lot less. And so like Lonely Mountain Snow Riders has like 2 difficulties per route. And then they have 4 routes per mountain and then 4 mountains. And I made it at least an effort to unlock every mountain and like kind of get, you know, what is each one doing? And there's so much more variety in kind of environments, even though they're all, you know, winter themed compared to Downhill. Like they all have like different biomes, like one of them's in China versus one of them is in South America, and like one of them's in Europe. And so like they have, like the designs are different and like the ecosystems are different. Like, so, you know, some of them are melting a lot faster and others are like frozen out like throughout the entire thing. And like,
right.
I don't know if I was just in a different mindset or whatever, but like it was landing a lot harder for me this time. And it wasn't, again, necessarily because it was more accurate to life or like more true to the experience of, you know, actually being on a mountain. But like for whatever reason, I was just like, yeah, this is a game that's doing something different. Like it's not trying to be Lonely Mountains Downhill 2. Like this is trying to capture a different experience and like, you know, bring more people to a, you know, an absolutely beautiful experience. I think like, you know, being on a mountain and like going downhill and like looking at like, at least for me at my skill level, I'm like, my eyes are down at the ground being like, can I take that like little, am I going fast enough to go over that edge without like completely eating shit or like, what can I handle? And like, I do think that Snow Riders does handle a lot more forward camera movement, way more than Downhill does.
Yep.
And in that way, I think it is a very different in terms of like how it's handling speed and how you're like trying to anticipate what's in front of you, trying to like look into the distance and say, okay, can I like angle myself so that I'm in a good position to like land this jump that I'm not even going to encounter for, a good like couple seconds or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And
to line it up.
I just think it's like a really good game that I definitely didn't give its fair shake at the first like time that I played through it, and I'm glad that I picked it back up again.
Heck yeah, I'm excited to go back to that one. It was actually one of the first games I looked for when I got my Switch 2 because I was like, I want to get that game and give it some time, and it's not on there yet. It's only on Xbox and PC at the moment, to the best of my knowledge. So I'm sure it was like some kind of Game Pass exclusive kind of deal for a year or two, and then it'll make its way over to other consoles. I hope. Because I definitely would love to have that on a portable console, like I did for Lonely Mountains Downhill. So,
and in terms of updates, I think it's gotten some, performance updates over the year or like
nice. Because I remember you having some issues with it when you first were playing it on the Steam Deck. Yeah,
and I have not encountered any of them anymore. So
nice,
significantly better.
Nice, that's good to hear. Because Lonely Mountains Downhill was like such a polished game. Not to say that I've never run into a bug. Like I remember one time having like my arms were just like extending all the way across the screen to like stay connected to the handlebars and like some weird visual glitches here and there, but like it runs pretty much like a dream, especially on the Switch 2. I don't think they did any kind of actual patch for it, but it does just run smoother without a doubt on the Switch 2.
Nice.
That's sweet.
And then to switch gears into the more zoomer shooter subgenre.
Yes.
I've been playing a lot of Echo Point Nova, which is the game from Greylock Studio. And I don't think I ever mentioned it on the podcast before, but they also released a game called Severed Steel, which was a similar like hyper-mobile, really fast-paced like boomer shooter, zoomer shooter, like really emphasizing, at least in Severed Steel, a lot of wall running, a lot of like your twitch combat, you're kicking enemies, you're sliding, and you're trying to like reload guns in these like levels that are pretty small but like really fast paced and like a lot of narrow corridors or crowded spaces. And like Severed Steel really didn't land with me. Like I played it for a very short amount of time and I was just like, this is not what I come to like shooters for. This is kind of a really demanding, difficult gameplay that, it's not what I go to the genre for.
Yeah.
And Echo Point Nova had been out for a while and it was, kind of billed as this hoverboard, like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater-esque, like you're going downhill, or like I guess more 1080, like snowboarding-esque sort of thing, where you're doing all the same shooter stuff, but you're doing it on this hoverboard and you're going in like all of these sky islands, and there's a lot of like way more like platforming involved in that.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, I just put off getting it. I think maybe because I was so cold on Severed Steel. But I picked up Echo Point Nova and started playing it, and it has really grabbed me. I've been playing a ton of it. I'm maybe halfway through it, but it is so different in terms of layout and pacing compared to Severed Steel, where Severed Steel is really like, all right, you are put into this room and we are going to highlight the objective, and you need to go to the objective and either destroy this thing or kill this enemy and then go to this other place and do that as fast as possible before you die. And you're running across walls and you're sliding underneath enemies and taking them down when you're sliding. And there's a lot of Titanfall 2 in these games in particular. But Echo Point Nova is huge expanse areas where there's also a you get grappling mechanics where you can grapple onto clouds in midair and you're flying across, and you get faster and faster and you get more jumps and more grapples, and you can grind on every surface. So like you can wall run in any direction that you have momentum in. And like it unlocks this. Yeah, I think it's way faster than Severed Steel, but because of the
I'm watching some video right now, and you are ripping, man.
Same.
It is like ripping through here. Yeah,
it's nuts.
But the difference is like there's just so much more space, like because every single area or arena or level is this giant, like you're expected to be zooming around and like kind of losing control and then regaining control in midair or whatever. That like, even though I think it's a much faster paced game than Severed Steel, it, for whatever reason, is the correct pace for me to get a handle on it. Like, it's really fun. And I think that it's because the emphasis is on the movement and less so on the shooting. Like, what you will do is you will reach an area and then you will start an encounter. And if you die during that encounter, you will respawn there and you can do it over as many times. And the game gives you different weapons and different perks that you can change. It's has different modes that I think are more of a, like, they have a roguelike mode where all of the perks are randomized in their locations and other things like that to like, here's a million different ways that you can play this game. I'm still just playing the like base game at this point, like normal campaign as is. But like I'm unlocking perks where if you run into an enemy on your hoverboard, like you will get a hit point back. Or like you take out an enemy, your reload speed is faster. And like there are all of these little things that like I don't know. It's what you kind of come to expect from any of these like modern age boomer shooters or like,
right. Doom 2016. Yep. I hear some of that DNA in this too.
Oh,
for that matter.
I am obsessively leveling up every gun or getting enough kills with each gun, even the ones I don't like, because they will unlock new features, and that's how I play these sorts of games. But like, the more that you explore, like there's a ton of exploration and you find agility orbs that unlock new abilities and stuff. And like, I don't know, it's interesting to like have these games that are kind of related or in like similar spaces, but their focus is like hyper on different things. Like even after playing this, I was trying to think of another game that like I could compare it to. And like the first one that instantly came to my head was Neon White. But like then I thought about it for 1 second. I'm like, no, this game is nothing like Neon White. And then I had to go back and play Neon White a little bit. And like that one is a similar thing, but it's mostly doing like speed and platforming with like the shooting being the secondary aspect to it. So I just love how these like sub genres emerge and then people focus on, it's like, okay, but this is the aspect that I really care about. And I just love that there are so many different like developers working in these spaces and making really interesting like takes on all of the formulas.
Yeah. And that there's enough of a crowd for these sort of like sub-genre games to exist and find their market, at least hopefully.
From these like mid-tier studios, because it doesn't look like it's got, it looks like a game made on not a huge budget, both Severed Steel and
Echo Point Nova.
Echo Point. I was just looking both of them up, and I totally kind of agree just watching the videos with everything you said, John. Like it kind of looks like I'm drawing a blank on the names now. Severed Steel has like more like everything just feels a little more constrained, and like it feels more like you're meant to like, I don't want to oversell it because I don't want to compare it to Super Hot because I love that game like too highly, but it feels like it's like here's a level that you're meant to kind of almost solve and figure out the best way through it, where Echo Point Nova feels like you can just like rip and roll and just kind of react to what you do and what happens and just be like, oh shit, I messed that up, but I can take this way instead and go around that way.
And that's totally the thing that like I was definitely feeling when playing Echo Point Nova, especially in the boss battles, which are just like essentially level sized bosses, and you're skating around and flying around all these bosses, but because you're moving in 3D space, it's harder to script those sort of things, and so you do have to like react organically. Where Severed Steel, because it's tight quarters and it's like, yeah, you absolutely have to be like, all right, there's a guy over there, I cannot I can't engage with him until I take out this guy, or I'm moving in this sequence of events. And there's always, I booted it up before the podcast to like get another feel for Severed Steel before I talked about it. And they have daily challenges now where it's definitely the leaderboard of like, all right, who can do like the most efficient like solution to this level that is done for the day. And like
that's cool.
But it's cool, but it's also not how I play games.
Not what I'm looking for in this type of game. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
But no, I'm never going to get a top score on any of that sort of stuff ever. Like, I'll just never be good enough at any one game or play it so often to be successful in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, unless it's Critter Crunch for me. But
well, there you go. Yeah, there are exceptions.
Yeah,
it's great.
Heck yeah. Well, you got me kind of sold on checking out that Echo Point Nova.
It looks cool.
At some point, it looks really fun.
It is.
Even just as the way they were like zipping around the map on the trailer, like zooming around and like using the cursor to click on the different hot spots or warp points. It was like, oh man, this looks really snappy.
Yeah, I keep unlocking more grapple and jumps, midair jumps. So I'm at the point where I was like, yeah, I can go wherever. It's great.
Nice.
Heck yeah. Give me a game that goes beyond the double jump anytime. But yeah, I think we can probably kick it over to Randall here to kind of close us out for the evening. And I'm sure John will possibly chime in here on this one as well.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Heck yeah.
So, Death Stranding, it's been like a thing that I've been going down this strand, and I've been trying to, play this game through. And lately, I've been kind of struggling with Death Stranding. Kind of hit a wall with it, where like So I've played like 10 plus hours of this. It's not like I gave up quickly, I'll say,
right,
but
yeah,
also it's
more than a fair shake. Yeah.
Also tough for me with the amount of things that it's throwing at me to do, and specifically how bad I am with navigation in general in my life. Just like exploring a map, and like my orientation of myself on said map to get to points is never something I've been good at. I am someone who, in the very early days of smartphone technology, paid for the privilege of some sort of mapping technology because I was so bad at this sort of a thing before Google Maps was a thing on phones. And this is still carried over to now, where... And I know there's ways of going about this if I like dived deep enough into menus, but like you'll get cargo that's meant to go in potentially different directions, which is the point. And, you got your cargo weight limit. And I totally understand that. And I don't mind juggling it. But then it's just, it feels like maybe I'm not reading the inventory stuff correctly or getting enough context at one given submenu. But sometimes it's like, you're leaving, but you don't have all the shit that you need to get to go over here. And I'll like, I'll go back. Or like maybe I like partially delivered a thing and then I forgot another thing. There's a lot of that going on, and I'm constantly like pausing because I'm still trying to like reorient am I still going in the direction that I meant to go in at the start? Yep. And I know that there's ways of like scanning, and there's ways of like plotting your pathway kind of sort of. And I've tried, I have okay, don't just give up. Like, try to learn what it's giving you to do this. And there's I did plot that path where I do the scan. It'll show me the line, but typically it's not nuanced enough to be more than just kind of a direct point-to-point line. And often there are, of course, massive mountains or rivers or whatever that you're meant to get around. And that, of course, puts you off course, let alone the enemies or whatever else that you're dealing with, or your baby's crying, or there's all kinds of things. BB, and and it's like, how do I grab BB? How do I look at BB so BB will stop crying in my face off right now because I'm messing up on these other 3 ways.
It's totally not a complex series of button presses to stop, unhook the BB, then cradle the BB, and then rock the BB, and then reattach the BB
until the meter gets back to a point.
Yeah.
All right, BB.
This is like taking Yoshi's Island to the next level, man.
It really is, yeah. And then, BB's got all kinds of trauma flashbacks that I'm starting to learn context on, but, there's a lot there, and which is fine. But then there's so much chatting, tutorializing still happening to me this far in that I'm just like, I can't.
It never stops.
I can't. It does. Doesn't seem like it does. It doesn't seem like it does. And I know that I can like click through and I'm like, yeah. You're saying more words. And then I'm like, fuck, I needed to kind of pay attention to that one. And like, no, I didn't. And then, so I know I'm also screwing myself over half the time, but you throw so many words at me. I just can't. And I'm often playing this at the end of the day when I'm like not my most alert self. And so all of these things culminate in my failure to continue seeing this through. Even the last time, like, all right, give it one more shot. And I'm like, all right, you know this, plot your course. Don't take too much shit. Just go deliver this thing over here. And so I was trying to do that. And I was trying not to look at the map too much. And then I ended up finding myself literally on the very edge of the overall world map, at least that was available to me, which was on the side of a mountain that I thought I was going to be able to go, on the other side of. But no, I was just stuck at the top of this like edge of a mountain and not well versed at any of the ladders or like climbing shit that I could use. And then I'm trying to like scale back down like a clumsy goat. And, then I just fall and die, and I fall again and get hurt, and BB's crying, and I'm trying to pull BB off on the side of a mountain, and it crashed and burned so badly for me there at the end. But I love how unique this whole thing is. I still love how unique this whole thing is. I just don't know that it can do. I don't think that I can play any more of it.
Yes,
it's not my thing, I guess.
It takes a special type of freak who loves maps and who loves moving over terrain and making an entire game about that. So I do not begrudge you at all.
No, I appreciate that. And like the moving over the terrain is still really interesting. And I've gotten so much better at controlling the character and like the weight distribution and like, fuck, press your L and R and like try to like, I'm so much better at that now than I was when I started. And I do respect that in a Lonely Mountains kind of way to some degree with these sort of things.
Yeah.
And that kept me coming back probably more than anything. But I just have to like tap out on it. I have to go to the next thing. I think I've reached my limit.
Yeah.
Hey, if you put in like 10 and even anywhere near 10 hours, to be honest, that's more than a fair shake for any game, no matter how long it is, in my opinion.
And I will absolutely grant you that like the menu systems are maybe not the best designed stuff because it took me, I've probably put maybe 30 to 40 hours into the game at this point. And like, even still, I will like start a mission and be like, crap, did I even take the cargo? Like, did I leave this depot with all of the things I need? And then I walk back and it's like, yeah, of course I did. And it's like, yes, I could have checked that in the overworld menu, but it also is kind of difficult to navigate to. And there's a lot of like, you have to engage with the game on its own terms.
Definitely.
And sometimes those terms are not very well laid out or intuitive. So
agree. That's very well said. Yes. And that's my experience.
I definitely started out, I think, doing kind of exhaustive waypoints where instead of doing like a single point where, okay, this is where I'm going and this is where I'm starting. And like what I would do is I would look at the map, which is a satellite map, and be like, all right, well, that looks like a mountain, so I'm probably going to need to go around that. That looks like a river, so I can probably go alongside that for a while. And I would have like, instead of just it being like 1 point to 1 point, I would have like 10 points in a route where I would then scan and then see like the very like granular angle that I would be moving along towards. And then eventually after doing that, you know, a dozen times, because I've also like played through at least the first map like entirely and gotten 5 stars at every single location, which is I think it's more obsessive than anything
Cartography.
When you're doing, you know, dozens of deliveries from point to point across the map and every point in between, like you learn the map a lot. And that's what I come to this game for, is learning the ins and outs of every single rock placed in the map.
That makes you so much more successful, though, if you can. And like, I hadn't
it's a
thought
game
about
for
it.
me. Like,
that checks out too, considering the whole Tears of the Kingdom without warp points of it all and everything. Yes, it's very much.
And also
that, yes.
not to get into a different side of things, but like I feel like this game like screams like if this could have been on the Wii U or like any kind of dual screen setup where you could just constantly reference the map. Because I have that same problem you have, Randall. Like, yeah, I'm playing Breath of the Wild and I'm constantly pausing the game to be like, wait, am I still facing the direction that I thought I was facing? I kind of turned a little, like, am I still heading in towards the waypoint or am I not? I mean, that game did a better job of like having those like glowing waypoints like shooting up into the sky.
Yep.
And that kind of alleviates some of that pausing all the time. But I definitely run into that same issue when I play games with big maps and you have to like kind of keep your bearings.
Yes.
I run into that same problem.
Same. I'm just terrible with that. But I do really like the idea of like chunking out a custom route based on the terrain. The way that you described, John, probably would have helped my cause a lot more. That makes a lot of sense.
And then after you've done like a couple successful routes, like I think it will just like the Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Heroes Path mode, like it will kind of like a heat map all of the routes that you've taken and then kind of distill them into the most optimal route.
Oh, shoot.
That's cool.
Now that you say that, I remember the footprints I guess I didn't put 2 and 2. Okay.
But you have to do it like a dozen times. If you're not enjoying doing that like one time, having the solution be just do it more is not like a great solution for most people.
Right.
It's such a fascinating, unique thing, though. It might end. God, I just can't do it now, but it could be one of those weird things that I just try again morbidly from curiosity in like 5 years' time again. It's
just go into a mule camp.
It does seem like that kind of game for sure. Like just like, hey, let me give this another shot just to see how it sits with me 5 years from now. Yeah.
I did clear a mule camp. I had to go through that.
Fun.
With a
Ebola gun.
Yeah, just zapping. Yeah. It's like, oh, he's running up on me. He's trying to spear me with a thing.
I love it.
Let me pull out my zappy thing and try to get him. I was doing pretty well with that, but it's time for something different all the same.
Yeah.
And I got to figure out what that is. Maybe it should probably be my resolution game, considering we're getting close to the mid-year point already.
Mm-hmm. I was just thinking the same thing. I actually, in the back of my head, I was thinking this was your resolution game, right? But obviously it's not. And then I was thinking, and then it made me think, I got to start Final Fantasy VII Remake. Or whatever it's called, Integrate Remake.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What is your resolution game, Randall? Why am I drawing a blank on that?
It's what's the game? The Sega Saturn game.
Dragon Force?
Oh, that's right.
It. Dragon Force. Yeah. Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm amazed I could pull that.
I was just going to say, per usual, John keeping track and keeping us in check.
Yep. Appreciate it.
Heck yeah. But
that's it.
I'm impressed that you gave it as much as a shot as you did. If you were, kind of veering off the path of enjoying it.
I just like games that veer off the path of just the standard template in the first place. That's what's like. I love that it's unique.
Yeah,
for sure.
So
for sure,
I'm always going to give it more of a shot if it's unique.
Definitely.
Well, then once people start making Strand games, then
which they probably will.
Yeah, Stranding likes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. Oh, that's good stuff. I am intrigued. It's one of those games that like it's still been, especially now that I'm looking for the PS5 version of like the, remaster or whatever. I haven't seen a cheap copy at all. Like they're all like $40-$50, but it is one of those games where if I see it down the road for like $15-$20, like I do want to just like check it out and just see what it's all about, get a little feel.
Yeah.
Based on even what you guys have said about it. I'm just like, I'm curious enough if I wasn't already.
It's interesting.
Check it out at some point.
It really is.
Yeah. And you got to just love, like, it's kind of, I was going to say an auteur, but kind of two auteurs doing their thing, with Guillermo and Kojima kind of just going in on this one.
Junji Ito is in the game, but he has an American voice actor. It is the most disconcerting thing to see. I was like, that is Junji Ito just speaking with an American accent. This is weird.
Yeah.
There's a lot that's purposefully weird in Death Stranding, to be fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta love it.
Definitely a one of a kind game. There's no doubt about that.
Yes.
At least for now.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't know anything else before we wrap things up for the evening here, guys.
Not for this one.
Nice. Well, yeah, I guess we can close things out here. And as always, you can find us on the internet at pursuingpixels.com and pretty much anywhere else. Just look up Pursuing Pixels and you can probably find us there. And until next week, we will catch you then and take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, I wonder if they didn't have rights enough to one of the things involved. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, how can these companies not have the foresight? Like, there's got to be a way for them to get the rights for something in a way where it's like, we have the indefinite rights to use the rights for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on this game. Like, we can't do it on anything else, but like for this game until the end of time, you own the rights to use it in this product.
IP
and then if you try to branch
fucked.
out, like, I know it's so stupid.
I wonder if this is one of those
so
scenarios,
stupid.
and this has happened randomly before, but not very often, where they think they have all the legal rights to a thing, and they make it, and they release it, and then, whoop, we got to pull this because we actually don't to this very specific thing.
Yeah, it's such a shame.